So that's what process we just discussed about the installing ESXi server remotely, rack stack, cabling, power on, configure remote console, access it remotely, health check, firmware upgrade, configure it, and launch the remote console, map the ISO, restart it, install it, and perform the post installation task. Okay. So in today's module, we are going to cover about Pramod. Can you follow up with Praveen once in backend?
Yeah, sure, sir.
Yeah. So we are going to talk in details about the virtual machines. So in this module, we will learn to creating the virtual machine and choosing the right deployment method on the basis of the requirement. So creating VM, virtual machine hardware deep dive, and then we'll talk a little bit about the containers as well. Okay, so so before creation, let's have a quick look. Even we have discussed earlier also. So VMware in a virtual machine, just a software in form of software that will run on top of your ESXi host. All right, and yeah, so there is many way of creating. Then we will talk about the appliance, OVF appliance, then VMware tools and installing the VMware tools in any virtual machine. All right, so how you can create the virtual machine in an ESXi host? You can use vSphere client portal, or you can use host client. vSphere client portal, you will access the vCenter server console, and host client portal, you are accessing the individual ESXi host management UI user interface. Okay. So we can deploy the VM as a fresh VM, or if some master template is available, we can deploy from that. We can deploy from clone as well. And it could be a virtual machine or virtual appliance or vApps in a different form. So what is the difference between all these? When we say we are going to create a virtual machine, it means that we are going to create a VM on the top of my ESXi. So this is just a empty shell, empty cell that will have the simple set of virtual hardwares, no operating system, nothing by default when we create the VMs. When we say the virtual appliance, so a virtual appliance is pre-pack set of operating system and running application. So when we deploy, it come in a form of OVA, Open Virtual Appliance, or Open OVF. These are the formats comes in virtual appliance. So they are available for download from the different vendor side. So like some backup appliance, some monitoring appliance, sometime. Okay, so it is a pre-packaged bundle with base operating system and application, what we need to do is we have to deploy this appliance in the ESXi host by using somewhere my local system. I will download or copy in local system. From this local system, I will browse my ESXi host. Then I will create or I will deploy this appliance. So once it will deploy in the form of virtual machine. But the difference between this virtual machine and this is already it will have installed operating system and application. While we create a simple VM, it's an empty shell. We have to deploy OS manually later and also the desired application. So that's the difference between a VM and a appliance. Are we clear? Any doubt in it? Are we clear how to differentiate the virtual machine and appliance? Pramod, Shiva, Suresh, are we good on it? We understand the difference?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So next is your vApp. So when we say the vApp, a vApp is in simple we say virtual application. Sometime my application is not enough to run in a single VM. They will have the different set of VMs together. Probably we can take an example. We have a application that run on a set of 3 VMs. Okay. On a set of 3 VMs. So what I can do is I can group all these 3 VMs in a form of vApp, virtual application. So whenever we need to deploy the set of 3 VMs, I have two ways: either deploy a new set and do that deployment again and repeat all the steps, or create a vApp for those set of VMs and deploy here. So once I'll deploy here, I means in ESXi, again there would be a local system. It will be deployed by using host client. Then it will create 3 VMs here. It will create 3 VMs here. Okay. So best example of it, like for example, I have hired 3 developers in a company, and all 3 developers need to work the application packaged inside these VMs, and I have to create the environment for them. So first way I have is deploy the VMs individually and yeah, deploy, install applications and all. Second way is one time deploy the VMs, okay, and one time, hear my word carefully, one time deploy the VMs, export them as a vApp. vApp means whatever installation, what the basic all applications is deployed in, export them as a vApp. Then near in future, whenever you need that set of VMs to be deployed, just import this vApp. All right, just import or deploy this vApp. Okay. All right. So also we can deploy VM from the template. While a template is a, sometimes we refer as a gold image. When we say gold image, it means that is like, for example, you build an Windows OS, you put some patch, update, security fix and all, or maybe you have installed some roles, IAs kind of that. Now, repeatedly, you need to deploy this VM multiple times. Again, you have to either deploy the new VM and do all the configuration again, or make a master template or gold image. Gold image is nothing, just a template. Create a template of this VM, and whenever you require that kind of VM, just deploy from the template. All right. So there are many ways of deploying the underlying virtual machines for your environment, and the couple of consoles, like one is host client you will deploy individually from the host, or vSphere client when you will accessing the vCenter server and you are deploying by vCenter console. End of the day, my VMs will be hosted on any of the ESXi host. All right, are we clear? Any
Sir,
doubt? Yeah.
sir, one question.
Yes,
So,
please.
like the like we import or export the VM using the VApp, right? So, like it will create a
Yeah.
VM, and same way template also create a VM. So, what
Yeah,
exactly
primarily we
changes
use
in
both.
cloning? Clone,
Yeah,
clone
cloning.
में मतलब what is the major difference in this?
Cloning also we can do, but yeah, let me just explain you here. So normally what happens in, when we say template, this is my VM. I have installed Desire OS, Desire app, Desire security features and all. All right. Then I make a template. Okay. Then whenever I do required, I can deploy the number of VMs from this template. Okay. And whenever I need to update this template, like for example, after 3 months, some set of patch is introduced for Windows operating system, you convert back is as a VM, update that and revert back as an template. All right. So on regular basis, you can update your template, but not directly convert it back to VM and update it, right? But will it update the VMs which will deploy, which were deployed? No. For the deployed one, you have to update it manually. But yes, if you will create the new VM, it will be the with available updates. So when we say clone, okay, so clone primarily used, like for example, this is my VM. Okay, so clone we primarily referred where, like for example, you are doing some testing in this, or you are putting some major change. So normally what people prefer, create a clone and shut it down. Okay, so that if any, during my new software activity upgrade or patch or some troubleshooting, something is problem, then you have a safe clone for this. And by any reasons it code crash or something happens, then you can start your cloned VM, right? But like if you will say, sir, why not clone every time? Because because this is a running VM, right? But template is stable. In running VM, there could be number of changes keep on happening, right? But now if you will create first VM, then configuration will be different. Second VM configuration will be different. Third VM configuration will be different. Okay. Then they are not using the same configuration or same gold image, right? So that's why keep a stable image we convert as a template, and we also refer as gold image also, right? Gold image is master image, right? While in cloning, every time VM cannot be stable, you will keep on working, and when you will create it, then it will change, right? And again, if near in future some updates come, then you have to perform for all. But here, at least if you perform on template level, near in future you will create any of the VM, then those VMs will be automatically updated. Right? Clear?
Yes, sir.
That's
Totally.
yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
the way and purpose, and like on basis of our demand and requirement, we create template or clone. Template is not actually VM. This is just a template, but clone it is my VM, and along with VM, I'm just creating a exact copy of that VM as a clone. All right. And when you say the V app templatize, I can do templatize one VM at a time, right? But when I say V app just creating a group of VMs, defining their dependencies and time interval, and yeah, just make a complete pack of number of VMs so that whenever you will deploy, it will deploy the entire list of VM that is required to execute that particular application. All right. Anyone have any question or doubt now? Shiva, are you clear on it?
Sir, I'm unclear on it, but on one doubt is on that host client. I didn't get that. How
Okay.
is that?
Host client is nothing. When I am browsing my ESXi, that is my host client. When I am typing the ESXi
Okay.
IP, this is my host client. But when I am directly accessing now I have logged in inside the host client.
Okay.
So I type just an ESXi IP. This is my individual host, right? But
Yes.
when I will type the vCenter IP here, then it will be my vSphere client. Okay.
Okay.
Sphere client is a inbuilt feature of or inbuilt service of vCenter service server, and host client is an inbuilt service of ESXi host. So if you want to browse an individual ESXi host through UI, it means that I am using the host client. All right.
Okay.
So now it is simply telling you the steps while we create the VM, new virtual machine, or it can be deployed from a template. Okay. So deploy from template, clone it, clone virtual machine to template, clone template to template, convert template to virtual machine. So it's all depend upon the requirement. So when we say deploy a new VM, it means that we are going to create a new virtual machine. If we are saying deploy from template, it means that we are assuming a template is already there, and by using that template, we are creating a VM. Clone the existing virtual machine. It means that there is a VM already available. I am just making a clone of that. Clone virtual machine to template. It means that is, if you have some virtual machine, first it will clone it, then it will templatize it. So what is the benefit of this? My VM will be as it is available, and also one template will get created. While I will create direct template, then it's my VM will get out, then only a template will be available. When I say convert template into VM, this case we do, I give you one example. When I say we need to update any VM template, so convert this template into VM so that you can perform all the upgrade and updates and convert it back into the template. All right. So this is convert template to VM. It means that a template is available, but for now, I am not keeping it as it is. I am not making a new VM from it. I am converting it into a VM. All right. But again, it could be converted into a template. So there is number of options are available. We have to choose on the basis of our requirement. So next step, it will ask me the name. Normally it's give a simple name, but people normal prefer to give the fully qualified domain name that we are going to use inside the operating system. Then compatibility perspective. Compatibility means is here like each of the version have certain set of compatibility. From here you will find a list 6.7, 6.5 or legacy version also. Guest OS family, you will get a big list kind of Windows, Linux, lot of flavors of Windows Server, Windows 7, Windows 10, Linux, Red Hat. Okay, then version. Once you will select it, then it will give you the default configuration of your hardware is supported for that VM, but you are free to choose the in the as per the request from the client. So normally when you will get a service request from the client, you will get all the details. When I say the details, what is my data center, what is cluster name, which vCenter, what would be the VM name, you will get a big list of Excel, right? What is the hardware configuration I want, how many CPU, how much RAM, how much storage, what would be the hard disk size, okay, how many NICs I want per NIC, where this NIC should be connect. I mean in virtual switch, where it should be connect. Okay, all the details you will get to create the virtual machine in the service request from the requester in your service request portal, whatever is being used in your company. It could be ServiceNow or another tool. All right, all the details will be given to you in the service request form. Then once you will do that, and if you will map the respective operating system ISO file here, and you as a next step, if first step is VM creation and second step is installing operating system. So if it is your responsibility to install the operating system, again in the service request form, you will get the detail of operating system as well and the path also, where it is somewhere it will be the ISO will be located locally in some data stores, in some storage that is associated to your ESXi host. So that way you can go ahead and you can install the operating system and you can hand over to the respective people. Okay. Then next is deploy from template. When we select deploy from template, then we will give the option or we will drag the over template here, or it will ask for path. So because that template would be somewhere downloaded in your local system where you are working. Okay, the OVA or OVF template would be available locally, or it would be somewhere in some ESXi data stores and all. First, you need to copy locally, then deploy on a ESXi host. So that's why they say they are designed for one-time deployment. So about the tools, so once we will install my virtual machine is ready. So as I said, like SVGA driver, this network driver, memory ballooning driver, sync IO. So all these set of drivers are available inside the VM tools. Then graphics performance, guest OS heartbeat service, time synchronization, ability to shut down of VMs. So these all features only available inside the tools which we need to install post installing the operating system. Okay, VM creation, operating system installation, then tools installation. Then if you will ask, sir, where these tools are available, these tools are by default available inside my hypervisor. What you need to do, you just need to map into the virtual machine and run the setup for these tools. All right. So it will automatically install all the features that is being showing here in this screen. So ensure that select the correct version. Normally, for vSphere 7 have tools version 11, but in some of the exceptional cases, the tools in the VMs are required with the upper version. What it means? It means that is, let us suppose I am using ESXi 7. I have created a VM. So by default, the tool version available in the default support tool version is 11, but I am putting a VM here. There is some application need to be deployed, but that required the tool version upgraded, maybe 12, maybe 13 or something like that. So in that case, during the app installation, it will show you warning or error, boss, I want this level of VM tools. So in that case, what you need to do, go to VMware site, download the tools version required for that application. Okay. And yeah, there is certain location in ESXi host. Import that tool into your ESXi host. Then from the VM settings, choose the right version of tool which is required for that application. But these have been seen very rarely out of 1,000 if you have 1 or 2 VMs. I mean, it is just a use case I'm telling. But yeah, if you need to do that, you should be aware with the process as well. Okay. So, so this is the method depends on the guest operating system type we are using. For Windows, install from windows.iso. For Windows Vista other operating system, open VM tools are available. For Mac OS darwin.iso, Solaris के लिए solaris.iso files. So how you can check, like the example I told you, if you need to download the version, you have to log into VMware, software downloads, choose the right version of tool, then you will be able to download these tools. Okay, but as I said, normally the default version supported for that ESXi version, the tool version is by default available. But if in some rare cases where we need to give the higher level of tools, then that case you have to download it manually and insert them manually. All right.
Sir, do we also need to update the hardware version in these cases where the
No,
higher version of tool required?
no, not mandatory.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a lab creating a virtual machine and installing tools. Yeah, definitely we will going to do that. But before that, let's go a little bit deeper on VMs. Well, what happens once VM get created? So once VM get created, it will create a folder with its own name. Some we called as VM home folder sometime also. VM home folder also. So where it will be created? It will be created in the underlying storage in your ESXi host. Okay. So at the time, all those VMs will be somewhere hosted on some of the ESXi host. Okay. All it compute, I would say CPU, memory, and all it's taking from ESXi only. But the configuration file and all, it will have a lot of thing inside this folder. So when any VM will get created, the same name folder will get created always. What it will have? It will have a configuration file, the swap file. Swap primarily used for whenever VM required more than allocated memory. BIOS file, VM log file, template. Template is only when it is a template. If no template, then no VMTX, only VMX. Either VMX or VMTX. If it is a VM, then it is VMX file. If it is a template, then it will be a template file. Then disk descriptor file. Then descriptor, that will have descriptions only. Then data file, VMDK, and snapshot state files. If in case some of the snapshots being taken, then snapshot state will get created, right? So when we talk about the disk file, yeah, by default, the default location of my hard disk will be inside the VM folder always. Okay, but if in case we wants to keep the VMDK file other than the folder location, we can keep it. So what I mean to say for it, like for example, this is my ESXi host, and this ESXi host connected with two data stores. Probably we can have these all files here, but all the VMDK can be here also. Maybe for those VMDK, I required some high performance storage. And for VM folder, I need normal performance storage. So they could be on different places also. But by default location is the VM folder. So any of the virtual machine create the, we require the virtual hardware. When we say like in physical, we have physical CPU, physical memory, physical NIC, physical PCI card, iSCSI card. Okay. So all the things are available in virtual machines also, but in a virtual form. So like it have the CPU, it have GPU connector, serial port, iSCSI port, NVMe adapter, floppy adapter, USB adapter, SATA. These all IDE controller, 10 NICs you can connect, hardware 3D controller, memory could be connect 6 TB. So like this limit, how many CPU, how many memory, these numbers actually. Numbers depend upon which of version we are using. Like in ESXi, this is the number for ESXi 7. These number could be different for ESXi 6.x family, 6.1, 6.2, 6.3, okay? It could be somewhere 64 or maybe 2 terabyte or these numbers, okay? These numbers matters. And near in future, maybe for 8.x, these number could be different. All right, because as soon as we are going to the upper version, the power, the improvement is going ahead in the upcoming hypervisor versions. Okay, so this all, what is the supported and all, we can check in VMware maximum configuration guide. So when I say maximum configuration guide, it will tell you what is the maximum supportability for that, and for that particular version. Like when we will choose the virtual machine section, under virtual machine section, we can see that. But yeah, definitely here you could see up to, it means that it is talking about maximum. For in ESXi 7, this all is the max virtual hardware configuration can be supported by your virtual machine. Okay, for SCSI controller, and each adapter will have 64. For NVMe controller, 14, 15 target adapter, 1 floppy controller, 1 USB controller, 20 devices. Okay. So if I will ask you in a virtual machine, how you will connect the USB? That's not possible ever. But it will create a virtual USB controller. It means that somewhere, let me just give you a pictorial diagram of it. If this is my VM, this is my ESXi. As a end user, you are working here. You just browse this ESXi and you are in this VM console. So if you will connect the pen drive in your local system, that pen drive's contents will be available inside that VM. But yeah, you have to connect your pen drive as an virtual USB drive. So you can map it, right? In that way, you can present the physical USB drive in the virtual machine. Same way for IDE controller. It doesn't mean that you can present the CD or DVD that is available in your local, or you could map the ISO files. That's the most prominent method. Whenever we need to install or deploy something in CD or DVD, we will map the ISO into locally or from CD or DVD drive, and we just install the component inside my virtual machines. All right, are we good on it? Any question? Are we clear? Sunil, Suresh, Pramod, Praveen.
Yes, sir.
Cool. So for each of the version, there is certain virtual machine hardware version. For ESXi, it is 17, 7.x version. It is 17. Maybe on when you will read about ESXi 8 version could be different, 18. Then you will see these all numbers will be changed over there. Same way for ESXi, but it doesn't mean that ESXi only support virtual machine hardware version 17. In legacy, it support these all versions also. Okay. So if you will create any VM on your ESXi 7 host, then it also support the legacy version. Probably I show you na compatibility, right? This when we were, this tab is indicating this what hardware version we are choosing. This tab, this one. If I'm choosing here 17, it means that I'm taking 17 version. When I will click here, you will get 6.7, 6.5 or something like that. So it support the legacy version as well. Okay, so if we talk about in more way, like for storage controller, different type of storage controllers are available, but those will get selected automatically during your virtual machine creations, and on the basis of the operating system you are selecting for deploy, it will be selected automatically. Then disk provision method. So when we say the disk provision method inside any virtual machine, there is 3 way your disk get be provision. One is thick. Under thick, there is 2 method. eager 0 and lazy 0. What it means? It means that is, if for any of the virtual machine, like for this virtual machine, you have created a disk for 20 GB as thick provision with eager 0 method, eager 0 thick provision, it will give you the option when you will select the disk. Under disk, it will give you the option. It means that is, it will immediately, like this is your data store, this is your storage connected to your ESXi host, it will immediately occupy this space in the underlying data store. What it means? It means that is, even does not matter if VM actually write the 20 GB data here. On VM it is a disk, but here it is a file. But it will consume the equal amount of space. So does not matter whether VM actually written the same amount of data or not. So what it will do normally, whatever the size being considered, it will do a zeroed formatting. When I say zeroed formatting, it will consume space automatically. The whole does not matter whether data is there or not. When we say lazy 0, it will again, it will consume same 20 GB of space, but whenever the first write will come, first write means something VM is trying to writing here, some file, operating system deployment and all, then it will go zeroed format. When I say zeroed format means is, it is consuming the whole space that is being allocated. So it means that if my data store size is 100 GB, for example, if you create a 20 GB thick disk, then it will automatically, it will immediately reduce the 20 GB size. Now you have available size is 80 GB in your data store. But against to this, when we talk about thin provision, so thin means is, like for example, during the virtual machine creation, you have associate a disk of 20 GB. Okay, but actually inside this disk you have not written any data. So it means that is, in your data store, a 20 GB space will consume, but it's a logical. So it's example of thick, leave it. So let's take this, it will give you better understanding. Like here 40 GB being created, out of this 40 GB is just a logical consumption. Logical means is, it will actually consume, or it will actually zeroed out the data. Like for 40 GB hard disk, it will only zeroed out the data, the part of the disk what actually amount is being used is. Like for example, out of 40 GB, it actually used 20 GB. Okay, then it means that is, if my data store size is 100 GB, out of that, if 40 GB being created as a thin disk, it will not actually minus 40 GB, it will only minus the actual used of that amount. So in thin disk, it always create the logical block or the particular disk, but it will not immediately zeroed out all the space. When it means zeroed out means that it will not immediately consume, or it will not immediately reduce or reduct that amount of space from your underlying data stores that is associated to ESXi host. It will only reduce the amount, or it will only actually consume what is being written actually. Okay, so thin provision allow me the initial level of data writing. Whenever I will write the data, it will keep on zeroed outing your space. All right. So in thin provisioning is faster, but when I do write the data, there is some delay always, because whenever new data chunks will come, first of all, that format need to be created, then only data will get written. But once it will get full, and like for example, I consume 40 GB, out of 40 GB, I delete 10 GB of data from this, but now my data is already, my format is already available. Next time onwards, if I will write something here, it will give you the, it don't need to zero out the space, and it will give you the equally performance like your thick provision. Thin is thin only the time until my data is not being written fully. Once it is written fully, if I will delete something, I will be back, then my zeroed out space is already there. So performance perspective, it will be faster. So in thin provision, we have a choice to create, like for example, if I have a data store of 100 GB, but in thin provision, I can provision more than 100 GB. Provisioning does not matter, right? Even I could take 100 GB here, 100 here, 100 here, but it will not impact, it will only reduce the actual size. Like for example, 20 GB is actually used here, 20 here, 20 here, then actual consumption is 60 GB, correct? It will reduce the space on actual data write by VM, right? But against to this, if I will take this 100 GB data store with 100 GB 3 disk with thick provision, it will not allow me for creation, because in thick provision, whatever the disk we are provisioning, it will immediately reduce that amount of size. Does not matter whether VM actually return that data or not. Okay, are we clear on thick and thin provision disk? So normally for general purpose workload where we don't need the immediate performance, we use thin provision disk. But where we need data should be written faster from the first write itself, we always prefer the thick provision disk, especially kind of database servers and all. But we have to keep in mind thick provision disk during creation, they will take sufficient time, just because they have to do the zeroed out space. They have to, like for example, here you took 20 GB. During the creation, it will take some time, because it have to prepare the formats when data will be written in it. But in case of thin, like in eager zero, it will do it immediately. In lazy zero, it will do on first write this thing. But in thin, only the data, only the space will be formatted, whatever the amount of data being written. That's why thin first provisioning is faster, but data performance is bit slower during the data write until my disk get full. Here, my provisioning always take time because zeroed out space. But when I will write my data onwards, it will be the faster performance. Okay, thin, it's take only the actual space consumption, but thick, it's always reduce the equal amount of space that's being created during the thick disk creation. So we always recommend the thick disk when from day zero we want the faster performance, and thin disk for the general purpose workload where my performance does not matter too much. All right, are we clear? Thick, thin disk type. So this is what I have described you all things. This is being available here. Creation time, thick, slow because of data zeroed out. Formatting faster, fully pre-allocated, allocated on the basis of zeroed out space. Higher chance of file blocks, highest chances of continuous file block. Layout is very according to base. Okay, that's all what we have described you. About virtual network adapter. Hello. Yeah, so these are the different network types are available. So like for Ethernet 1000 and 10,000E, then VMX next 3. Normally people use this one. Flexible SRIOV, where my NIC are one-to-one map to the physical NIC and it will pass the virtual switch. Direct IO path, then physical PCI network adapter, that's take kind of SRIO itself, and RDMA also. So these are the different flavors of NICs being supported. But as I said, this is the recommended one and the most used network interface type. Okay, other virtual device. So if I will say USB, for USB, I told you example, it's a virtual USB port, a virtual hard disk, virtual memory, virtual network controller, all the components being present as an virtual. By whom? Any ISO we need to map, we can map through CD, DVD. USB 3, a USB 3 is something you will connect that device to your host, then that will be present inside the VM. Floppy drive, so for connecting a floppy to VM, a floppy image, so they will come .flp. So these are the .flp file actually that we need to uh, map with the floppy drive, and it will present as a floppy drive in my virtual machine, but normally people don't use it. iSCSI, for iSCSI adapter, vGPU, like if in case we are using the GPU graphic processor units in your physical server, then we can assign the vGPUs to the virtual machine, especially the applications which require the higher graphics. So once we create the VM, we have launched the console, and launching the console, we can put the desired operating system. We can edit the configuration. Okay. And yeah, so we can recognize the available component, VM settings, console and all. Yeah, that definitely we will see in the lab how to deploy a VM and how we will edit the settings and configuration for the virtual machine. All right, so next is the introduction of containers. So containers is something like, it is the smaller unit than VM. So for now, for running any application, we are using an operating system, all right? And this operating system is hosted in some VM. And this is my application. So for now, any app I am running, or it's just consuming the entire operating system. But what containers tell me? Containers are especially used for the microservice architecture. When I say microservice architecture, the applications are very much not are heavy that require the complete operating system. So when say monolithic is something that's an high-end heavyweight applications, and that required the heavy database, heavy UI interface, heavy operating systems and all. While we see the microservices are light in the weight, and they required light database, UI interface and API, and we can run number of applications by using a single container host. So what is the container host? So till now, to running an application, we required the complete VM and complete operating system. But what container platform do for us is a like this is my ESXi cluster. On the top of it, this is my one of the VM. Under this VM, you have installed an operating system. Then by installing a container engine on the top of, now I am expanding, this is my VM, okay? This is the operating system layer, and this is my container engine being installed here inside the operating system itself. So this container engine is allowing me to create the container. Containers are nothing, just micro VMs that have its small operating system and application as well. Same way, for another, I can create another container where I have small micro operating system and micro applications. So in that way, for my micro applications, to running my micro applications is on a single VM itself, I can run number of applications in the containers. Okay, so you could see like on ESXi host we run VM, OS and application, but here my one VM is my container host, that where we have installed container engine, and by using this container engine is my Docker is my one of the example where we are using as a it's a software that's being deployed in my vSphere environment. And for the overall management of the setup, we use the management engine as an Kubernetes. So like your vCenter, here is Kubernetes. Kubernetes is the container management platform. Kubernetes is the container management platform. All right. So by containerizing my applications, I can run the number of applications within a single VM. So you could see here, this is my hardware, this is hypervisor. Now this is my VM, a guest operating system. This guest have a container engine, and by using this container engine, I am able to create number of containers, and the containers have its an micro operating system and the application. All right, so this is further again, right, this is just an differentiate, he could say, like we can run multiple applications on the single operating system by using the containers, and where Kubernetes is my container management engine. All right, so this is what is saying you you can use underline vSphere for networking, it use NSX for application monitoring. These data stores are my storage, there's number of services, but yeah, again for reading the containers in detail, VMware provide you all together a separate course, a separate training for containers. All right. Yeah, that's it. That's it from theory part. So we'll take a quick 5 minutes break. Then I will showcase you for deploying the virtual machines and perform the basic settings, OS installation, tools and all in the virtual machine. All right, guys, are we good? Any question?
Sure, sir.
Okay, so be in the
Yes.
call. I'm stopping this recording. we should not make too much lengthy recording. So I will start from fresh.